Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. This is J.R. Moore coming to you live from deep in the mountains of the Missouri Ozarks on Friday, the 10th day of August, year of our Lord, 2012. Well, I've got some interesting things going on. Tomorrow morning I'll be meeting with the producer of a Japanese television show with the Fuji Network in Japan, and they'll be interviewing me about Nibiru. Today they're meeting with my friend Professor James McCanney up in Minnesota. Friday the 24th of this month, 2 weeks from today, I'll be speaking at Ziggy's Restaurant in Springfield, Missouri, 5:30 p.m. That's the corner of Sunshine and Glenstone. There's 3 different Ziggy's restaurants in Springfield, Missouri. This is the one at Sunshine and Glenstone, 5:30 p.m., 2 weeks from today. 3 weeks from tomorrow, there will be a special event. This will be Labor Day weekend, the 1st and 2nd of September, at the Viburnum, Missouri Country Club. That's V as in Victor, V-I-B-U-R-N-U-M, Viburnum, Missouri Country Club, which is in the extreme northwest corner of Iron County, not far from my home. There'll be 2 days of speaking and training on matters that concern us. My friend Command Sergeant Major Page will be the featured speaker. I will be speaking, and we're going to have some other instructors on communications and tactical long-range rifle shooting, and possibly ham radio also. So there'll be no charge for this, and the country club is open to the public. There's a swimming pool there, golf course. There's a motel nearby, restaurants nearby. So it should be a fun weekend. That will be the 1st and 2nd of September, Labor Day weekend. We do have some interesting Earth Change headlines, as always, from standeo.com. And let's just jump right in here. There's our break. We'll be right back. All right, ladies and gentlemen, all right. We will have a moment of silence to commemorate the inability of Republic Broadcasting to get rid of this spot telling you to call a number that doesn't work. So we'll take a 10-second moment of silence. All right, that concludes this 10-second moment of silence, commemorating the inability of Republic Broadcasting to eliminate the announcement that you should call a number that you should not call. Anyway, we do have a number of Earth Change headlines here at standeo.com. First of all, going to Southern California. Earthquake swarm shakes Southern California. Is something bigger coming? Then we have drought hit U.S. bust heat record from Dust Bowl days. Next we've got July 2012 marks the hottest month on record ever. Here we go, down to Phoenix, Arizona. Another monster dust storm blankets Phoenix. Then going over to the Atlantic Ocean, U.S. forecasters raise Atlantic hurricane outlook. Over across Pacific Ocean, we got 3 updates from New Zealand. First of all, second New Zealand volcano burps after eruption. Then we have New Zealand volcano still steaming. Then we have eruption updates for White Island and Torgarito. Going south to Mexico, Veracruz braces for Ernesto's landfall and flooding. Then we have drought worsens in key farm states. And then U.S. crops limping into autumn as drought lingers. And then livestock farmers still seeking pause in ethanol production. And last but not least, U.S. drought drives up food prices worldwide. We do have patiently waiting in the green room my friend Ann Morrison. Ann is an engineer. Ann is a scientist. And she pays attention, very diligent attention, to the things that concern us about earthquakes and volcanoes, bizarre weather events, and the radiation coming from the Fukushima radiation nuclear disaster. Her website is linked on my links page at thelibertyman.com. And good morning, Ann.
Good morning, John. Well, I got 2/3 of an inch of rain 2 days ago.
2/3 of an inch. Well, we had lightning and thunder and not a drop.
Not a drop.
Not a drop, although 7-8 miles from here they had a measurable amount of rain, not a whole lot, a fraction of an inch like you got. At this point, all we're looking to do is replenish the groundwater. The grass is dead for the season, I'm pretty sure, most of it. Some of the weeds seem to be prospering, and we're seeing the wildlife coming out of the hills. I'm seeing deer in my yard here. I have not seen deer in my yard for years, but we have spring-fed ponds here and a creek and lots of leafy green vegetation because of all the water. And we're seeing the deer come out of the woods. There's reports of mountain lions coming out of the woods. They're probably following the deer, of course. They don't eat grass. So things are changing down here in the Ozarks, Ann.
Well, that's because things are changing, John. They're changing all over the country.
They are. And what's high on your list this week that you're paying attention to, Ann?
Well, there's lots of things happening, as you know. I think probably one of the things I'd like to talk about, only because we haven't talked about it before, is the arc storm. And if that's all right with you.
Sure, let's go for that.
Okay. What California did, and they asked the USGS for a scenario, because in the winter of 1861-1862, there was a rain event that lasted 45 days. Sounds like Noah's Ark to me. And I'm sure you've heard the term Pineapple Express. Have you heard that term?
I have heard that term. Explain to people what it is.
Yes, that's a stream of weather. Actually, it's a stream of water in the atmosphere that comes from the direction of the Hawaiian Islands, and it usually rides the jet stream in, so it follows the jet stream. And what that brings is what we hear about it here in the Midwest is the weatherman. The weatherman will say, well, that's an Alberta clipper, and then we know that a cold front's coming in. When he says Pineapple Express, then we know we're going to get rain. This atmospheric river is fed by the temperature contrast between the equator and the poles. It's not fed by the warm water of the ocean like a hurricane. So that's what makes it a little bit different.
Right.
And in 1861-62, the capital was at Sacramento, which was capital of the state was in Sacramento, which is in the Big Valley, and it was. Well, they had to move the state capital to San Francisco because there was so much water in the streets. They used boats to get around.
Really?
If you can imagine rain, tropical rain, rain rates very high, an inch an hour or greater for 40 days, for 45 days. That's what they had. And
they must have thought it was the end of the world there.
Well, yeah, I'm sure they were counting the days, and when they got over 40, they must have thought it. What they call this is an atmospheric river, so that they abbreviate that AR. And these are not uncommon. They think that there have been 6 of them in the last 1,800 years. And so this is the other big one for the West Coast, at least for California, but also for any place along the coast where the jet stream would come in. Now, they don't explain why they happen. They just, that's a little bit, I'm sure we'll find out, because they're claiming, because this project that was commissioned by the state of California from the USGS says that, we can expect another one. And if you think 6 in 1,800 years, that's what, 6 will go into 18, so 1 every 300 years, and the last one was
that would be an average, right?
Yeah, and that's just an average. Anyway, so this report that came out of the USGS is called the Multi-Hazard West Coast Winter Storm Project, and it says, we really need to prepare for that because Sacramento is still in the Big Valley. And, in fact, they have trouble now keeping the salt water out of the Big Valley. They have a series of levees that run from San Francisco to Sacramento. And occasionally those will get inundated and they'll overflow their banks. And in some cases, there's salt water in there because, you know, the California coast is sinking. It's much like the Louisiana coast around New Orleans. There's subsidence there. And you can say what you want, but I think it's from the oil drilling and pumping that they've been doing off the coast. This is especially around the San Diego area where it's subsiding the most. But they pump oil out of the ground under the ocean. They have these pipes, these wells that are at a slant. You know, we usually think about pumping wells as going up and down. Well, no, they can slant them and take oil from a nearby reservoir of oil.
In fact, that's what was happening in the first Gulf War. Kuwait was slant drilling underneath the international border into Iraq's oil reserves.
Exactly. And anyway, we have two problems now off the California coast, especially in the Southern California coast. One of them is that there's subsidence occurring, and the other one is that we've got methane. We have a methane column, a methane class rate column, that is, right now it's stationary. It's a big bubble of methane gas, and it's about 20 stories high. Now,
where is this bubble located again?
It's just off of San Diego.
Really?
Yes. It's they've discovered it recently, and 20 stories high. It's been accumulating for a while, and the way that it's described in the news is that the oil companies would really like to be able to drill into the methane class rate caverns because they can get natural gas. Methane is natural gas.
Right.
And so they can make a lot of money on natural gas because oil is becoming a political handicap, whereas natural gas doesn't have all the political
baggage.
Negativity. Yes. Yeah, baggage. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of those oil wells that are pumping along the 101, along Highway 1, the coastal highway there, are tapping into methane class rate caverns, and it's leaking. Or in any case, they're leaking methane class rate into the ocean. And methane class rate is when methane is under pressure, it will accumulate water molecules around it. In some cases, if the pressure is high enough, it will accumulate up to 20 water molecules per methane atom. Now, methane is CH4. That's carbon with 4 attached hydrogen atoms. And the hydrogen, as we know, is highly flammable.
Right.
So methane is highly flammable, and when you pass an oil rig, you'll see them flaring off at the top, the methane that's accumulated in the oil. And so that's an indication that they have tapped into some source of methane. That's not a good sign, but you see those oil wells in the...
Hold that thought, Ann. We got a break. Everybody stay tuned. Call number is 877-488-5350. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. It is Friday, the 10th day of August. This is J.R. Moore. We're visiting with Ms. Ann Morrison. Her website is linked on my links page at thelibertyman.com. Just go to my links page and scroll down to the white picket fence and click on it. You'll be there instantly. Let's continue, Ann.
Okay, okay. Methane class rates, as they thaw out, they drop off the water molecule and eventually become a bubble of methane, which will rise to the surface because it'll be lighter than water. CH4C is 12, I believe, and H, of course, is 1. So we've got 16, which is the same as 2 oxygen molecules. So, and of course, once it pops into the surface, methane is actually a worse global greenhouse, has a bigger impact on greenhouse as a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. And if it doesn't ignite, although there have been cases in far history where we know that a methane bubble has ignited and wiped out the population in a particular area, then it will rise through the atmosphere because it's so light and end up as a greenhouse gas in the stratosphere.
Uh-huh.
So we either have the problem of it'll burn at the surface, or it could burn on the way up to the stratosphere, or it could become a greenhouse gas. Okay, so these atmospheric rivers, this report was paid for by the state of California and focused on the state of California. But as we know, our weathermen report on Pineapple Express is coming to us. So we know that it doesn't stop at California. And that stream of water, and we're talking a massive stream of water that's traveling at up to 200 miles per hour. And when it dumps, it's like a monsoon. It dumps a lot of water. And so if it continues past California, and we'll get into the Midwest. And so we need to think about that. I haven't seen any reports that anybody's doing a similar report for the Midwest, the impact on the Midwest. Now, since we're in the middle of a drought, that sounds like a good idea. But when you have rain for 45 days, that is not a good thing, because we have no retention basins here. Right. And so the rivers fill up, and they flow into the great rivers, which is the Missouri and the Mississippi and maybe the Tennessee and the Illinois and the Ohio. And the rivers fill up, and then they flood. And, of course, the rain keeps coming down on the land, not just the rivers. And so we have erosion of the soil, and we have landslides. And, of course, it's a good thing to have the rivers filling up, but when they overflow their banks, then they wipe out the levees that the Army Corps of Engineers has spent so much time building for us. So we need to keep, everybody in the whole country needs to keep track of this. And I'm sure that you've been reading about the storms, the monsoons over in India and China, right. And the fact that the people in the capital have had to flee the capital because they need to get to higher land. And then, of course, there are landslides, and whole villages get covered up with mud.
Right, right.
So keep these things in mind. And if it looks like it's going to, if you hear the term Pineapple Express during the weather segment on the local news, then you want to take special attention and see. You should know in your local area where the flooding occurs. I mean, I know that you do because you've told us about your spring-fed stream there and right. How it went from 3 feet to 20 feet in the course of, I forget the exact.
And normally our little stream's usually 10 or 12 inches deep, and it went to 8 feet deep in just a matter of a couple of hours. We got a caller here, Ann. We got Tina in California.
Hello, Tina.
Hi. I called the other day about seeing this program about Arc Storm. And
yeah.
I wanted to add one other bit of information that I found since then.
Okay.
So I went to the FEMA flood maps that are available online to the public and for insurance companies, and I think it's real interesting that none of the maps are available now as of July. They're being updated, and they don't even show the old flood maps, which have always been available. Like when you're buying a house and you want to look, to see if it's in a flood zone. For our entire area here in Southern California, you cannot even see them anymore, and there's just, sorry, they're not available. They're being updated, and they give no date of when you could anticipate even getting one. But yet I look at my daughter's farm in Kansas. She's available.
Oh, it's just in California?
Not California. Yeah.
Oh.
Southern California, and I thought, okay, this is another weird one. There's too many coincidences going on.
Well, that's right.
We can do some checking there. And I would think that normally they would leave up the old information and maps until they had the new ready to go, wouldn't you?
Well, that's... I hear music, but yes.
You hear music, yes. Well, anyway, stay tuned, everybody. We'll be back after the break. Anyway, Ann, we're talking about the Pineapple Express.
Pineapple Express, yeah. When you hear those terms on your local weather station, then you need to pay attention to that, because what they're talking about is heavy downpours, possible flooding, and we really need to think about our long-term planning here in the Midwest now that we've had the drought, and understand that the USD is saying drill your wells deeper. Well, that's what they did in Arizona, and now they have a desert in Arizona. We really need to build some retention basins or make sure that some of the water gets caught before it gets into the rivers. And I know that we can do that. I mean, they did it in California, so I'm sure we can do it out here in the Midwest. And, let's not turn the Midwest into a desert. When you dry up an aquifer, then all those plants that were using the water out of that aquifer, they can't adapt that fast. I mean, yeah, there's evolution going on, but we can tell by what's gone on in Arizona and Southern California that plants don't evolve that fast, and they aren't going to. I mean, the only thing we're going to be growing out here is cactus, and I don't want to eat cactus, although I understand it's a food. So this is just a precautionary caution. This is a caution from me to, read what they say about the arc storm. It's predictable. They know when it's going to happen, but flood protection out here or in California apparently is not prepared to handle a deluge of water that lasts a month and a half. I mean, it's hard for us to believe that could happen, but it has happened, and it will happen again. Now, as far as Tina's comment about the flood maps, when I find something online, even if it's at a government website, I copy it down, and my webmaster, I copy it down, right, I save it on my hard disk, and my son has grumbled for years because I keep asking for more and more space, and now I'm up into the gigabytes.
Right.
And but of course they're making these disks. I carry around a little thumbnail drive that has 4 to 6 gigabytes on it. Right. This stuff is getting so inexpensive. Just copy it down and make a hard copy of it. Should the power system go out for whatever reason, then you're going to want a hard copy. And I know that seems strange to people that are used to reading books online or have these Kindles or whatever that they can carry around with them. But if the power goes down, you'll be happy to have a hard copy.
Oh, yes, yes.
And so you want to build
anything that's really important, I agree absolutely, anything that's really important about emergency medical treatment, communications, growing plants and eating wild edibles, you always have hard copy backup, always.
Okay, well, I think I've said enough about Arc Storm, and I would appreciate it if people would talk to their representatives, their state and local government officials, and say, well, where are we going to get our water from? I mean, the USDA is saying drill deeper. That's not the answer. All right, I wanted to talk a little bit about, we haven't talked very much about viruses recently, and they have a new study out on the H5N1. The H5N1 is 50% fatal in humans. It's 100% fatal in chicken, and the geese and the ducks and the migrating birds, it's maybe 1 or 2% fatal, but mostly what they do is they carry the H5N1 in their feces and in their blood, and so they contaminate the waterways that they land in. Those waterways are not a good place to go swimming. In fact, you should be wearing waders when you're out in the fall when you're doing your shooting, when you're collecting your ducks and geese for your freezer. And where they stop, now generally they do not get up on the land. They stay in the middle of the lake or the reservoir where they land, but they do contaminate the water. And they're saying now it's not so much the feces, it's the feathers. It's when they're,
really?
I'm sure that you've seen them grooming their feathers. And what they're doing is they're moving the oil from the oil glands out throughout the feather. And apparently that oil is highly contaminated with the virus.
Really?
Yes. So you do not want to be picking up bird feathers. I know that they're pretty. Children love them. Tell them you're going to have to start warning. This is a new world. This is part of the new world. Whether it has anything to do with global climate change, I can't say. I don't think so. I think that it's a virus that arose in China. It could have come out of a biolab in China. It's endemic now in Indonesia and in Egypt. Now, we have a lot of Americans in Egypt, at least we used to before the wars, before the, when they were still a tourist, when it was still a tourist destination. But it's endemic in Egypt and in Indonesia. That means they no longer report directly the numbers that are the numbers of cases and the numbers of deaths.
Really?
So you have to go to their in-house, to their government official sites to find those numbers.
And we have a caller here. We got Barry in California. Good morning, Barry.
Hello, Barry.
Go ahead, Barry. Good morning.
How you doing this morning? Hey, John, you and Ann were on with Dr. Deagle last Friday, and you were mentioning about the bases on the East Coast and the West Coast.
Right.
I know you for a while. I've been listening to you. I've been listening to RBS since 2009, and I know that when you put information out there, you don't put it up there and just to put it out there.
I don't do it flippantly. No, I don't do it flippantly.
You verify everything you read. Well, there's a lot of poo-poo out there coming against you on YouTube and stuff, saying it's a bunch of poo-poo what you're saying. What is the latest on that?
Well, there's been no change. I'm going to be talking to my contacts this afternoon and seeing if there are any updates, and I'll be reporting on Monday morning. So no changes that I'm aware of, Barry.
Yeah, I mean, these people are like, they're saying that you and Dr. Deagle and Ann are a bunch of kooks, and I've known you for a while, and I said, no, I can't believe that you would put that information out, put your neck on the line to give disinformation. I just can't believe that.
Well, as the old saying goes, Barry, if you can't take the heat, stay out of the kitchen. And as and there's another saying, you're over the target when you're taking flack. So if I have to take the flack, I'll take the flack.
I have a question. I'm carpooling with my friend to work, and she was curious. The double earthquake that we had here in California, the double parity. Are we getting close to a big earthquake out here, or what's the deal with that? Do you guys know?
Yeah, I listened to the report from Caltech, and Lucy Jones there is an expert. I've been listening to her. I mean, she's been giving these reports for, probably a decade at least. She called it a doublet. There were two 4.5 earthquakes all at almost the same place in Yorba Linda, California.
Right.
Now, we've had other doublets. We've had doublets off the coast of Mexico at the tip of Baja, California. And we recently had a doublet, I want to say someplace else. I've forgotten now, probably over by Australia. Now, the doublet, what she said was that it increased the chances of a major earthquake in Southern California to 1 in 1,000 from 1 in 100,000. Right. So you must have heard her report. Yes.
I was watching at the donut shop waiting for my ride after work, and they heard another geologist were speaking.
Yeah, I've been watching the earthquakes all along the San Andreas Fault, and it certainly looks like, this one thing to mention is that there are now more earthquakes in a 7-day period than there were a month ago. In other words, we've reached the 200 earthquakes per week, and we're now at 225 earthquakes per week. That is
Like
a change.
a week?
Yeah, that is a change from April 11th. In April 11th, we had a doublet. And at that time, the number of earthquakes went from 400 per week to 200 per week. And it's been at 200 per week for the past, since April, since the middle of April. And
is the weather right for a big one?
Well, we are getting into a more seismically active period of time. Now, whether that is because the Earth is coming around to the equinox, or whether the Earth is approaching the Sun more closely, or whether Nibiru, which will be next Friday, will be August 17th is next Friday, will be the closest to our solar system, I can't say. But there isn't, I try to look at real data, and real data says that there is an increase in the number of earthquakes. There seems to be an increase in the number of doublets. And I have looked at the San Andreas Fault in particular. Now, the doublet that occurred in Yorba Linda was not on the San Andreas Fault. It was far...
Well, I live on the east side of San Andreas, and it hasn't had a major earthquake there in 135 years, so I'm concerned that it could possibly happen any time.
Well, we have had, the San Andreas Fault extends throughout California from the northern border of California at the ocean down through the desert, and at the Mexican border they stopped calling it the San Andreas Fault, but it continues down through the Sea of Cortez or the Gulf of California, and it continues down along the coast of Mexico then. And there have been what I would call significant earthquakes in the southern end of the extension of the San Andreas Fault, some that were felt in San Diego, for instance. So
I'm in the high desert area, if you're familiar with that. I'm north of San Bernardino.
You're in a good location because I've just talked about the subsidence of Southern California. Well, that is west of the San Andreas Fault that's occurring. So, so if there should be now the earthquakes seem to be moving from south to north. We've had some really big earthquakes off of Ecuador and off of Nicaragua and off of Central America and off of Mexico. And we have had some significant earthquakes at the border between the United States and Mexico on the extension of the San Andreas Fault. So I'm expecting that that's going to continue, and like you said, there hasn't been a big one on the San Andreas Fault for decades. I think that would be reasonable. And so we know that the strain is building up there. Now, that's probably the most highly monitored fault line in the world.
Right.
And we get a lot of reports of earthquakes, and there are more along there now than I've seen in a long time. Now, a lot of them are small, and small earthquakes are good because they do relieve stress.
Right.
But there seems to be a buildup of energy, and I wouldn't be surprised if a big one wouldn't hit along the San Andreas Fault. Now, where it would hit, I can't say. This thing in Yorba Linda is about it's not even halfway up the state. It's in Southern California. But that might be an indication of where it might hit along the San Andreas Fault.
Well, the thing of where I'm living is that we're over 4,000 feet, so I'm not worried about the ocean water covering the land where I'm at. I'm up real high.
Well, I think that's great, and I'm glad that you're willing to state that, because I want to recommend to people who live in Southern California that are west of the San Andreas Fault that they move to higher ground.
We need to move on here. Barry, thank you for your call, sir. We got another caller on hold. We'll be right back. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. Ann Morrison and I have our backpacks off, ready to finish up this show. And we got two callers here. We'll try to get through these two callers before we wrap it up. Brad in Las Vegas. Good morning, Brad.
Hello. Good morning, Jill. I'd like to ask if you could break down a quick timeline of what will be happening next week, say Wednesday through Sunday-ish, and then the next kind of comes around again to affect us?
Right.
The Nibiru thing?
Or Brad, that date was given by one source, and it was not my source, August 17th. I'm not doing anything special. I have not put my daughter on alert to evacuate Seattle. Unless I get corroboration from another independent source, I'm not treating August 17th as any special date, nor am I September 26th. And I hope that helps you, because there's been a lot of turmoil stirred up about this. Mike Harris and I reported those dates because the reliability of the source and our obligation to report it. But absent independent corroboration, I'm not treating those dates as anything special.
Yes, good training, good training. If it does happen, would we expect extreme heat or extreme cold? How should we pack our bug-out bags?
Well, the heat and cold is not going to be a factor. What will be factors would be ocean levels if there was a pole shift. Ocean levels coming up. The United States will be farther south, by the way, so everything will get warmer. 200-mile-an-hour winds, earthquakes, and volcanoes popping off all at the same time. I'm not anticipating that happening right now, though.
Oh, good. Now, do you expect anything from our Soviet friends that are in our forests?
Well, they're not our friends, and what I've been saying for quite a few years, Brad, is that during any kind of crisis, the president would invite them to help us out in our time of need, and that's what would go down. They'll be here to implement martial law, is what they would be here for.
I thank you guys for all your work. Have a great day.
Okay, thank you, Brad. And this will be our last call here. Eric in Georgia. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning, John. Rand, should we, the people, be concerned about geoengineering and or chemtrails?
Absolutely. Geoengineering is being done on the sly. We're not being. It's must be on a need-to-know basis because we haven't been told about it. But every once in a while, I'll run across an article, a news article from a reputable source that says that. Well, for instance, China claims to control the weather, and they shoot sodium iodide crystals into the air, and then they get rain. But and the same kind of thing is being tested by all the big powers, by all the great world powers. You know, if China's doing it, we're doing it, the Russians are doing it, and probably now the Middle East, since it's becoming a power source too. Some of the effects that we're seeing, these excessively long heat spells, these excessively long cold spells, you know, we had ice here, 6 inches deep, and that was only 3 winters ago. Very unusual. I think that they're playing with fire.
We are out of time, ladies and gentlemen. Ann, thank you. We'll be in touch. All right. Eric, thank you very much. That's it for today. That's it for the week, ladies and gentlemen. You all be safe out there. Buy lots of ammunition. Never give up your guns. The code words for today, for those of you behind occupied in occupied territory, the code words are: the sailboat is green. The sailboat is green. Be safe, and God bless America.